Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is the day 7 of my 15 days of Python. It's been an exciting journey. If you've not watched other videos, you could just go back and watch the day 1 up to day 6 of all the videos I've done on Python. And today we're going to be looking at an interesting topic called the control flow. And we'll be starting off with the conditional statement. What are the conditional statements? I'm just going to list the outline of what we're going to be covering in today's video. Let's head over to my desktop. We'll be looking at understanding and using the if and else statements. We're also going to be learning about nested conditions. I've spoken a lot about nesting, and today we're going to be looking at nested conditions. Combining conditions using logical operators. There are logical operators you could use to combine conditions using logical operators. And finally, just like we've been doing in all of the series, we're going to be applying conditional statements in practical example and exercises. It's going to be an exciting one. Introduction to conditional statements. What are conditional statements? The conditional statement allows you to execute a specific block of code based on certain conditions. Let's say you are building an application and you want the application to take in the names of the age of the user, the name, the age, and every different conditions. But you have a problem, especially trying to maintain data consistency. You could apply a conditional statement to ensure that all of the data is valid based on what you want it to be. You could put a condition to say you only want numbers and not strings. You could also have different use cases. You're building an application or you're transforming data, and in your transformation you want to create certain condition from a table to create new columns, to create new tables. You use conditional statement in a variety of contexts. So essentially, conditional statement helps you with decision making. It also helps in security checking and a couple of things that you could do. The most common conditional statement we have in Python is the if, elif, and the else. These are the most common that you have in Python, and we're going to be looking at each of these individually. The first is the if statement evaluates a condition. So it looks at the condition that you're putting, and if the condition is true, it executes the block of code indented under it. I've spoken a lot about indentation. Indentation in Python is usually used to show sequence, what should happen after the indentation. So in the example I have here, you have x is equal to 10, and this is assigning 10 to x. I want to put a condition to say, if x is greater than 5, if that is true, you print s is greater than 5. And if I run this, it's going to show me x is greater than 5. The reason, because I have a condition to say, if x is greater than 5, only print this if x is greater than 5. But in a situation where s is not greater than 5, and let's say this is 3, for instance, if this is 3, this is not going to print. It only prints when x is greater than 5. I'm able to apply a condition within this, and that is what you could use the if statement for. You have the else. The else statement follows an if statement and executes if the condition is false. In the previous example I have, if the condition is false, I'm not going to have any output. Nothing is going to happen. But I could go further to say s is equal to 3. Yeah, I have my 3. If x is greater than 5, print x. But in this condition, x is not greater than 5. What am I going to do? I could say else, you print s is not greater than 5. In this situation, I've made provision for a false alternative. If it's not true, it's going to be false, and when it's false, what happens next? And that is where the else statement comes into place. Now, the elif. There are situations where you have more complex use cases that are not just as simple as the first examples we've seen, and it comes in between. So if you're using the elif, it comes between the if statement and an else statement, because you might say, put the first condition, if this is true. In our example down here, you have x is equal to 5. And you have a condition that says if s is greater than 5. It scans through this condition to say, is f greater than 5? X is obviously not greater than 5. And it's going to look for the next condition. Well, s is not greater than 5. What happens next? What happens next is, instead of coming to say else, print s is less than 5. You could add an else, you put another condition, a second condition. Now check, is s equal to 5? If s is equal to 5, then you print s is equal to 5. But if this condition is not met, the next thing that's going to be printed is this. The thing about Python is that Python follows a sequence. It goes through different kinds of sequences programmatically to see, is the first condition met? If the first condition is met, it goes to the second, it goes to the third, it goes to the fourth, and it just follows that sequence to ensure that it meets all of the criteria that you have set. And in this condition, if s was 3, what is going to be printed is going to be the else statement. So you just note that. Next is the nested condition. I've spoken a couple of things about nesting in my previous video, but now this is nesting applying to conditions. You can nest if statements within each other to check multiple levels of conditions. In our example here, we have x is equal to 10 and we have y is equal to 5. We put the first condition. First condition, what are we checking for? Is if s is greater than 5. That's the first condition that we are checking. Now we come to put a nested condition under that. You ensure that the first condition is fulfilled. If s is not greater than 5, none of this would run, even the nested one. So if s is greater than 5, then we check another condition. Is y greater than 2? If y is greater than 2, we come here and print s is greater than 5 and y is greater than 2. Otherwise, s is greater than 5 but y is not greater than 2. So in this situation, you have a nested condition underneath. After everything, if s for any reason is not greater than 5, then we run the else statements. S is not greater than 5. Now, you could use Boolean logic, which we've talked about in previous videos, to combine conditions using the logical operators, the and, the or, the not. I'm going to explain that just in this example I have here. The first one is s is equal to 10 and y is equal to 5. I have the first condition. If s is greater than 5, I can now have the logical operator and. If both are true, and is true. But if any is false, and is false. So s greater than 5 and y greater than 2. If it is so, we're going to print s is greater than 5 and y is greater than 2. We can put another condition. If s is greater than 5 and y is greater than 10, you print either x is greater than 5 or y is greater than 10. The or checks for any condition that is true and returns this. So s is greater than 5 or y is greater than 5. If none of it is true, nothing is going to be returned. But if any one of them is true, it's going to return this value. And you have the not. What a not statement does is to invert the condition. And instead of saying if s is less than 5, it's going to say if not, s is less than 5. So it's going to print s is not less than 5. And it just inverts the condition that you have there. Now we're going to do an example that will help us understand grade classification. I'm going to go to my environment and we're going to start working on that environment. So let me create a new example. I'm going to call this example 1 and ensure that you have your day 7 folder created, which is what I have already, and I'm just going to go straight to example 1. In my example 1, I'm going to be doing a grade classification. I'm going to call this grade classification. So I'm going to say score. I'll allow the user to input a value, that's the score that they have. And I'll say input as the user to enter your score. Because the score could be in decimal, I'm going to make it a float just for that flexibility. Then I'm going to assign the grade and do the classification of the grade. The first one is if you have greater or equal to 90, we're going to give you an A, which is fair. So let's do that. If score is greater than or equal to 90, print grade is A. I cannot just say else. If I say else, print as C or D or whatever, it's not going to work. So I'm going to say an else, otherwise, and put a new condition. And how do I do that? If you remember, we're going to do an Elif. So let's use that. Elif score is greater than or equal to 80. I'm going to print the grade as B. Then the next condition is going to be when the grade is 70. And I'm going to print it as C. The next is when the grade is 60 is going to be a D. And finally, when you have any other thing less than 60, it should be an F. And I don't need to put any other condition. All I'm just going to say is else. If all of these conditions are not met, it means that you have less than 60, and it's going to be an F. So this is completed. Let me test this and see how this is going to work. I'm just going to run in here and let me put a grade. Of course, I'm the one testing, so let me give myself 85. It tells me that the grade is B, and if I should run it again and put in maybe 50, it just tells you that the grade is F. Let's do a second example. And in the second example, we are going to be working on even or odd numbers. I will go back to my environment now. In my environment, I'm going to create the second example, example 2. I'm going to be creating a program that determines if a number is even or odd number. And when you impute a number or the user imputes a number, we're going to be checking, is this an even number or is this an odd number? So let me call this even or odd number. For the first, I'm going to allow the user to impute the number. So call this number. I want it to be whole numbers, integers. So do int input. I'm sorry here, just to correct this. Enter a number. So of course we know that even numbers are numbers that can be divided by 2 without a remainder, and that is the logic that we're going to be using. If the number is not divisible by 2, then the number is an odd number. So it's very simple. What we're going to be saying is, are you divisible by 2 without a remainder? If the answer is yes, we just print that you're an even number. So we'll set the first condition if, when you divide the number by 2, is the number, the remainder 0? If it is, we're going to say print, the number is even. Else, you print what? We'll say the number is odd. Are we ready to try this out? So let's go. I'm going to put in a number called 10. The number is even because it's divisible by 2 without a remainder. If I put in 5, the number is odd. I'm going to do one more example. We're going to be doing age classification just to classify people's ages. And if your age falls within this bracket, we're going to give a tag to that, or we're just going to assign it a category. Let's go back to the environment and I create a new and call it example 3. I'm just putting loads and loads of examples just to help you understand more on the conditional statement, but this is not so much different from what we've done. This is age classification. Just allow the user to impute age. It's going to be int because your age cannot be in decimal. You have to have a whole number. So the conditions we're going to be setting is very, very simple. And the condition, if the age is less than 13, we're just going to call you a child. If the age is less than 20, you are a teenager. If the age is less than 65, you are an adult. Otherwise, you're a senior citizen. It's not an easy feat to be above 65. So I'm just going to write that here. Yeah, so here you have it. If the age is less than 13, you are a child. If the age is less than 20, you are a teenager. If the age is less than 65, you are an adult. It fulfills this first condition. If this first condition is true, before you look at the second condition. So if you're less than 20, you are a teenager. But if you're less than 13, let's say you're 12, you're going to be a child because the condition above is first fulfilled before the subsequent condition. If I'm to run this and I provide an age of 12, of course the first condition is going to be fulfilled to say that you are a child. If I run this and I put 13, obviously going to be a teenager because 13 is not less than 13, and say you're a teenager, and if what I'm entering is 20, is going to tell me that you are an adult. Same with if I printed 50, it's going to say you're an adult. Else, if it's anything above 65, let me say 66, man, you're a senior citizen. So what's going to be the exercise I would want you to work on? The exercise is to write a Python script that takes a number from the user and checks if it's positive, negative, or 0. Well, that is pretty simple based on all of the conditional statements we've been working on. I'll be happy if you're able to try this on your own. You could try this. However, I'm going to be working on the solution next. So if you could pause it here, work on it, and kind of use mine to do the correction of your code and not outrightly using mine to write the code. I'm going to be creating exercise 1. It's pretty simple, and it wasn't intended to be anything complex. It's just to say, taking number, the number could be float because we are looking at positive and negative numbers. If you did any form of mathematics, you would know about the number line. So I have this picture here from QMath. From your basic mathematics, any number that is below the origin, which is 0, is negative, and any number that is above the origin, which is 0 again, is positive. And with this logic, is going to be very, very easy to take the user number and make a condition to say, if the number is greater than 0, well, you can print that it's positive. If the number is less than 0, you could say it's negative. Otherwise, what you've provided is 0. Now, I'm going to be taking an input or float. I'll say input. So I'm taking a float and tell you to enter the input, and I'm going to put all of those conditions. So the first is if number is greater than 0, is going to be positive, of course. And the second, if the number is less than 0 from the number line that we have, is going to be negative. And the final one is just the else you call it 0. I'm going to run this and let's see what happens. If I put in a 4, it tells me that the number is positive. -1, it tells me that the number is negative. And if I put in a 0, finally, it just tells me that the number is 0. So good, you can try this on your own, and I hope you've learned a few things about conditional statements and how you can apply that in your own analytics, in your own programming, and all that you do with Python. See you in my next video, in video 8. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can share the link, and for other people to have access to this information and learn more about Python just like you are doing. And I'm gonna see you in my next video. Bye.